lot of great hate here. I think both these guys or trainers have very fun teams, so excited for this one.
Yeah, let's hop right into it. Two of Brendan's Pokemon that are very unique to the team in the Corviknight and Mimikyu being the leads here. Corviknight will instantly catch that Incineroar with the Intimidate, bouncing back off the Mirror Armor, while Gengar will be led by Leonard to be able to instantly set up the Mega Evolution like you mentioned and continue to try and pivot around to find a trap here against one of Brendan's Pokemon.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is probably the lead Brendan was expecting, where it's not too bad here, where the Intimidate getting reflected onto Incineroar like feels like a bad thing, but and this is like at least a sort of offensively oriented Incineroar. It does have a couple of attacks, but like it doesn't really matter, right? This is a pivoting Pokemon on this sort of team. Was likely going to leave battle pretty quickly anyway. It is a situation where like Gengar isn't like in a super great position where you don't want to ignore this Corviknight for too long and let it just like bulk up. So excited to see how quickly Leonard chooses to play this one.
Well, going to immediately Mega Evolve the Gengar and protect it. So making sure to lock in the Corviknight. Of course, because Mimikyu is a Ghost-type Pokemon, it will still be able to switch out despite the Shadow Tag being up. Brendan will just go ahead and go for a bulk up here onto the Corviknight to start getting those stat boosts. But Incineroar switching out with the Parting Shot, dropping Mimikyu's attack one more stage, now at -2, and switching in another Pokemon. Now, Corviknight just showed a bulk up here. Actually, just going to be the Samurott. If Ninetales had been here, may have been a good call to bring that Pokemon in, but without coming in, may not have brought Ninetales this time around.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Normally you think, like, oh, it's a weather matchup. Like, I have to bring my weather Pokemon. I don't think you do here at all, where, it's like nice to have the option of resetting the weather from the Sand team, but like, Ninetales really doesn't want to fight those Pokemon anyway, where it's very weak to most of the core Sand Pokemon, so I think fairly likely it's not here. Instead, we do see Samurott joining the battle, and I really feel like both trainers are probably expecting each other to do exactly what they did the previous turn, so we'll have to see whose game plan is better, as probably neither side is surprised.
Okay, well, Samurott was just happy to be there for a moment, switch back out with the flip turn, deal a little bit of chip to the Corviknight. Honestly, not insignificant damage after a bulk up. Does have the option to bring in the Incineroar here again to drop the attack of the Mimikyu one more stage and protect the Gengar a little bit more. That is going to be what Leonard does here. Brings in the Incineroar, drops the attack on the Mimikyu one more stage, now at -3 attack. So even super effective damage is not going to be dealing a whole lot to Gengar. You know what is going to deal a whole lot? A Shadow Ball into Corviknight. Brings it down under half while the play rough. Negligible damage onto the Incineroar there.
Yeah, maybe emphasis on the play, a little bit less rough there, where it does its best, but not ideal. However, you kind of wind in the same spot where I think it's a big tailwind there for Brendan, who now has the option of roosting instead of just being pinned here. This Corviknight does not know Protect, so would have been in a very bad position otherwise, but and then you still have a sort of interesting spot. Like, well, I mean, you could get Roost disabled. I guess it doesn't really matter, but we'll have to see what he opts to go for. And then the Mimikyu's like going to need to leave battle here with 2 Intimidates. It's just doing nothing.
Yeah, 2 Intimidates, a Parting Shot, and you get the opportunity to bring in the Tyranitar here. One of the safest switch-ins into the Gengar. Fake out onto Corviknight means that it will not be able to roost, so instead going to focus down that Pokemon with another Shadow Ball. The fake out plus the Shadow Ball, even with the leftovers recovery, is able to hold on just a little bit there and reflect back a special defense drop.
Yeah, I mean, not normal what you think of Mirror Armor doing. Probably not going to matter too much. Oh, actually matters a lot, I guess. Where,
yeah.
Otherwise it would prevent the roost, but it's not like Leonard was using Shadow Ball trying to get his Spadef drop anyway. So now Corviknight going to be in a position where it has the option of roosting, and it's a little bit more threatening this time too, right? A little harder to just start focusing down the slot when Tyranitar has now entered battle. That is the Mega Evolving Pokemon on Brendan's side of the field, threatening a ton of damage to both these Pokemon. Incineroar doesn't have like a Will-O-Wisp or anything also to keep in mind, so Tyranitar not feeling very threatened by either of these Pokemon, and Gengar is going to have to flee.
Yep, Gengar is able to retreat. It is not Shadow Tagged in, instead tagging out for Sneasler now out on the field, instantly threatening fighting type damage into Tyranitar. Brendan is going to go ahead and Mega Evolve, getting that stat boost onto that Pokemon. Corviknight forced to roost here because of all the damage that it took from Gengar, allowing the Sneasler to get in relatively safe. Rock Slide deals a lot of damage to Incineroar, and if it can get a flinch on Incineroar, that puts Brendan in a really strong position. Otherwise, Incineroar may just be able to pivot, pivot, pivot.
Oh, and he does flinch. So yeah, that is a huge
sorry,
flinch.
Leonard.
The caster curse power is in full display there. Yeah, I mean, it's a big flinch, and I think it really puts Brendan in a nice spot. I think one thing for his side of the field, Corviknight feels like the sweeping threat right now because it has one bulk up, but it's easy to imagine a situation like we saw before where it gets pinned. I think what really matters is getting rid of the Sneasler, actually. I think kind of the answer to like, oh, well, why is it Ninetales here? Oh, because Sneasler is necessary to check this Tyranitar, who otherwise kind of runs over this team. So Samurot's running a lot of damage, but you know, that kind of becomes like one last option where getting rid of Sneasler and Samurott means Tyranitar wins, and Sneasler's kind of in a tough spot now where Corviknight trading itself for it would allow the other Pokemon to be able to only have to focus down that Samurott in order to win, get a lot of Pokemon who can't protect here. Fake Out going to keep Sneasler safe for now.
Yep, Sneasler is safe from Corviknight this turn at least. Corviknight will flinch, and another Rock Slide from Tyranitar. This time doesn't even have to hope for a flinch, instead just picks up the KO onto Incineroar. And Incineroar, you know, the stocks, I'm still willing to buy Incineroar stocks, but Brendan making short work of that Pokemon here as Corviknight shrugs off that Fake Out damage with that leftovers.
Yeah, Tailwind critically expiring here, so I don't know. I think it's probably pretty close on whether Corviknight is being threatened with a knockout if you want to try to go to a double in that slot with a Shadow Ball from Gengar in a close combat. Certainly missing that would probably be throwing the game, so I mean, Leonard, the sort of player who probably knows either way. Also be a little cheeky just to ignore that Tyranitar here, but you know, that's the fun of turns like this one. Like, oh, well, you know, my Mega's exposed. Are you actually going to go for it? I'm going to guess no, so I think maybe I play a little risky, and yeah, no Protect for the Tyranitar.
Ooh, no Protect from Tyranitar. Another Shadow Ball into Corviknight does good damage. Here comes the close combat. It does have a bulk up. Can it survive the close combat? It cannot. Corviknight will go down here. That means that this Tyranitar now gets to swing onto both of these Pokemon. Sneasler's White Herb now activating the Unburden ability, giving it a huge boost to its speed. And the knockoff not quite enough to pick up the KO onto Gengar, but there is still the sand on the field. And with that extra little chip damage, the Mega Pokemon goes down for Leonard.
That's a really interesting trade. So both sides losing sort of an important piece, a very important piece there. The Mega Evolved Pokemon on one side, that bulk up from that Corviknight going to waste, sort of, although really doing a great job of kind of the visible follow me there, protecting Tyranitar. However, we do see Samurott entering the field, and yeah, he's going to be in a tricky position now where you got to commit to a move. This is a Choice Scarf Samurott, but there are some pretty good options. You know, he does have the Sacred Sword, which would be devastating. Both these Pokemon could go for a water type attack. Critically, we know that final Pokemon on Brendan's side of the field is the Mimikyu, so you maybe don't want to lock into a fighting type move with only a weakened Sneasler next. They're probably going to be forced to go for a water type move instead.
Yep, there is the retreat from the Tyranitar, preserving that Pokemon so that Excadrill can benefit from the sand later on. Mimikyu now out on the field. Sneasler's Rock Tomb will connect into the Protect, trying to lower the speed of that Excadrill, trying to break the Focus Sash, lower the speed, and pick up a KO, and instead gets none of it.
Yeah, you see what he's going for there, right? It's like almost a great play where, like, oh, you know, this is a Sand Rush Excadrill. It's so safe. It's got Focus Sash, but yeah, it would have broken the Sash had Rock Tomb connected it, and then made it slower than the Choice Scarf Samurott, which would have picked up a knockout before it moves. Instead, Brendan doesn't make a job. He calls the play. He gets Tyranitar out, which also matters because it's going to be able to reactivate that Sand Rush later. Assuming Excadrill doesn't fall to that same combination of attacks, because now that that slot is committed, it's Protect. It is still in a lot of danger here, but you know, that Mimikyu that we were kind of making fun of earlier, suddenly looking like it's in a really good spot where I don't think either of these Pokemon can do very well with a play rough, and there's no Incineroar left to intimidate it.
Yeah, absolutely, and even a Shadow Sneak coming out from that Mimikyu may be able to deal enough damage to the Sneasler. Let's find out. Right from behind, Sneasler goes down to the Shadow Sneak. That Pokemon is now off the field. Mimikyu picking up that KO. Samurott forced to go for the Aqua Cutter, connects onto Mimikyu, but it's just going to bust the Disguise on Mimikyu, leaving that Pokemon vulnerable, taking a little bit of damage because of it, but this Earthquake coming out from Excadrill will deal plenty of damage, and with only single target attacks, Samurott just does not have the power here to clean this up.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way this is going to go Leonard's way. It's a really impressive game by Brendan, who always just kind of seemed like he was in control of this one. And then a whole lot going on Leonard's way. Like I mentioned, the very first turn that came, giving a bulk up for nothing is terrible, but there's just not really a whole lot Leonard could have done about it. You know, just like going for a blind Shadow Ball that turn would have been very risky.
Yep, Mimikyu will just protect itself this turn while Samurott gets an Aqua Cutter off onto the Excadrill. So actually dealing a good amount of damage back, but again, single target attacks. That means that Brendan gets to swing with the Excadrill, the Mimikyu, and or the Tyranitar multiple times. So Leonard will go down here. Brendan will take game one. and Leonard's going to have to make something happen here in game 2. That plan does not work.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I love Leonard and the way he looks at the game. He got flow-charted there a little bit, right? Where it just seems like Brendan got exactly the lead he was expecting the other side of the field. Leonard kind of was in a position the first couple turns of the game where like he really didn't have any choices. Like he could only really do safely what he did the first turn. He could only really do safely what he did the second turn. And then by the third turn, the game kind of felt over where there just wasn't a whole lot of options for him to get back in. I think team preview is going to be the key here, right? There's a lot of dangerous Pokemon on Brendan's side of the field for Gengar here. And it's going to be a difficult matchup for Leonard because of that. I got to assume you lose the stand versus Gengar or Ninetales matchup at a pretty high percentage of the time. But hey, he's a smart player. If anyone's going to figure a way through this one, it's him.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of big survivals here. The Corviknight just barely hanging on to that Shadow Ball, allowing it to get back up and roost and continue to be a presence on the field, drawing aggro, drawing attention for a number of turns, weakening everything up for this Mimikyu to be able to pick off the Sneasler with Shadow Sneak. And then, yeah, Brendan was just way too far ahead in game 1. Nothing Leonard could do there. So gonna have to go back to the drawing board here in team preview, pick out a new selection of 4 Pokemon that matches up much better into that lead. So let's take a look, see what the Beedrill Professor has in store for us now.
I'm impressed. That's 100 wins with
Beedrill.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen Beedrill play 10 games. Anyway, we have Samurott and Gengar facing out this time. So same lead, I think unsurprisingly on Brendan's side of the field where, yeah, show me you can beat this. And there's definitely more options this time. I don't know what Shadow Ball does to Mimikyu. I assume that's very easily a knockout if there's like a double target in that slot. I think because of that, the double is a little bit obvious where I think Brendan did a pretty good job of calling that. I think in one decisive turn in game 1 where just attack to the Tyranitar knowing his Sneasler wasn't actually going to go for it. Here, I think it's a little bit more of a read. You know, this time there's no bulk up on the Corviknight, but maybe you just protect and try to get the freebie.
Yeah, there's also the option for, Samurott has the ability to critical hit through those bulk ups too if it needs to, but here comes the Mega Evolution from Gengar. Brendan will protect the Mimikyu here. Of course, Corviknight does not have Protect available. Samurott went for the flip turn, trying to bust the disguise to open it up for the Gengar. And just like in game 1, Leonard goes for a big double target and gets punished. A free Tailwind from the Corviknight.
Yeah, I guess fortunately for Brendan, or fortunately for Leonard, Brendan was reading the turn just like we were. Like, oh, I probably shouldn't just give up my Mimikyu for nothing after it wound up being the MVP of that previous game. And he's in a very interesting spot now where not only get the Tailwind completely for free, the Mimikyu is no longer pinned, where you'd assume now that the 2 Pokemon on Brendan's side of the field are quicker, so you could go for a double, and because of that, Samurott has to escape here. But we see a mix-up where this time there is the Ninetales, although fortunately having to enter battle before Tyranitar, so not exactly controlling the weather.
Yeah, not just before Tyranitar, but also without the ability to find like a bulk up or something to catch in the trap. Instead, just going to take a Play Rough and the Brave Bird from both the Mimikyu and Corviknight. Does survive, but that just means that Mimikyu gets to break the disguise and gets poisoned here from the Sludge Bomb.
You know, if this becomes a slower paced match, the poison's not so bad. You know, especially with Sand eventually, probably later playing out. I think there's a real world this makes a big difference. However, for now, not such a great spot for Ninetales. It takes those attacks pretty nicely, though. It's got to be like right at the point where you're concerned about whether it can take a Shadow Sneak or not, just like in the previous game. However, a critical difference is now at least Gengar is threatening a knockout into that slot, and while I think a double the other direction probably knocks out Gengar too, you're now in that position where, okay, well, we both have danger being threatened in either direction, so there's some level of read to be made where previously Leonard is kind of just pinned.
Yeah, well, with the Gengar and the Ninetales out on the field, these are 2 Pokemon that can start stalling out some of these Tailwind turns, but Ninetales will just retreat for the Samurott, trying to waste some of these turns by hoping to catch a Shadow Sneak that's not very effective into that Pokemon. Instead, Gengar takes a Shadow Claw from the Mimikyu, and Corviknight, firing off a Brave Bird, catches the Samurott on the switch-in. So Ninetales switches out, survives. Gengar survives that turn. Not with a lot of health, but does survive. Fires off another Shadow Ball into the Corviknight. Now, Tailwind is about to expire. I believe there's 1 more turn remaining. But this Gengar is still well within Shadow Sneak KO range.
Yeah, I mean, I am starting to get real concerned for Leonard here, where Brendan's played an excellent set so far, and that's a lot of damage on the board. There's a bunch of weakened Pokemon. We've already seen the Shadow Sneak for the Mimikyu currently pinning the Gengar, but even beyond, actually both Pokemon probably pinned. And then even beyond that, you assume Tyranitar's in the back. The sand damage alone is pretty scary. Gengar forced to protect here. We'll have to see if Leonard can make a read to try to get himself out of his difficult position.
Ooh, actually, it's Brendan going for the Play Rough onto Samurott. realizes that there's no way Leonard's going to give me Gengar here. Let me just go ahead and take out the Pokemon that can't protect. So getting that Pokemon off the field, probably a double up, honestly, just to cover for the play rough 5% miss chance. And that means that Brendan has taken down a big Pokemon threat. Now, Tailwind is over, but once again, the Shadow Sneak from this Mimikyu is just pinning Leonard's Gengar.
Yeah, it's really awkward too, because I think you'd love to bring in Ninetales here to help try to deal with this problem. You kind of can't, because it would also be getting checked by the Shadow Sneak, especially with the ability to turn the snow off by switching Tyranitar in. So Sneasler going to have to come in instead. These are not the Pokemon that Sneasler is on the team to fight, where, maybe it gets Corviknight here, but I think it's probably going to be just short, and then just matches up really poorly with this Mimikyu, right? I mean, I guess you could try to Dire Claw it and maybe go for the Shadow Ball into, but yeah, it wouldn't be enough, so trying to protect instead, and Leonard's not going to get it.
Yep, had to go for the double protect, does not get it. Instead, the Shadow Sneak will pick up the KO. This Mimikyu has proven its worth on this team, just dismantling Leonard's Pokemon. There's the close combat from Sneasler onto Corviknight. Actually does pick up the KO, so no Tailwind goes up. That means that it will be Sneasler and this Ninetales against the world here. Sneasler getting that white herb boost is also a really big deal here, as it will allow it to at least match pace with the Excadrill in Sand.
Yeah, I think the trick is going to be how you break that Focus Sash. Because, now it's kind of a similar situation at best as last game. The Ninetale's going to come in first, match the Excadrill there. I'm probably anticipating that, like last game, Brendan's kind of trying to prioritize speed control, so leaving or weather control, rather. But I guess speed control, too.
Same thing.
Sand Rush on Excadrill. But, however, it's the reverse switch is kind of spooky, where at least Sneasler now is sort of pinning the Excadrill slot. Like, are you really going to switch Tyranitar in there to try to get the weather and risk getting close combated? But like the answer to that might be maybe.
Yeah.
Where
Why not?
Like okay, well that's gonna happen. I'm gonna Shadow Sneak your Ninetales, and then I still win from there. So I'm curious what Leonard's move is going to be to try to prevent that. Mimikyu's gonna switch out instead. So we'll see Tyranitar coming in to try to win the weather war, but not risking the slot that's likely to eat a close combat.
Yep, that's going to be the Tyranitar on the switch in. Excadrill tanks that close combat, brings it down to Focus Sash as expected. So Excadrill now at 1 hit point, but in the sand where it loves to be. Sneasler takes those drops, does not have a white herb anymore, and I love it. Earthquake every Pokemon on the field, pick up KOs on both the Ninetales and the Sneasler. Who cares that you just did over 50% to Tyranitar? You just won the game.
Yeah, easy clap, right? Where it doesn't matter. I think even if you crit Tyranitar, probably just